Hey everyone, this is Steven here, back at it again with another video. In today's video, I plan on going over Beckett's recent news that they have suspended most services and also that they will be at the National. I'm going to talk about some of the reasons why I think that happened and then also talk about what we can do next. But before we get into that, if you enjoy this type of content and would like to see more in the future, please feel free to hit the like button and subscribe. So now that we got that out of the way, we can get into the actual video. And Beckett came out with a newsletter late last night, so this is still kind of newer information, but this is straight from the Beckett website. It says here, Beckett announces plans for 2021 National, which makes you think that this article is just about the National. However, when you come down here, it does mention that they are suspending services, which we'll get to. I just thought that was pretty interesting. The title didn't even mention that. Basically, the title is Beckett announces plans for 2021 National, and I'm not going to read this whole thing. I just wanted to go over a couple of key takeaways that I took away from this article, and this came from Jeremy Murray. He's the president at Beckett, so this is straight from him, and I just wanted to read a couple things that I thought was pretty interesting. So it says, Dear Beckett customers and collectors, I hope this letter finds you well as the world tries to get back to pre-COVID days. Beckett has intentionally been quiet over the last few months, which I thought that was pretty funny because no one's really heard from Beckett over the past year or so, so they've been kind of really quiet, keeping that on the DL. But then it says, that is not because we've had nothing to say or no reason to be proud. We could have been bragging about keeping our services fully open to the public without a price increase. We should have been boastful about the increasing number of new employees we have hired from around the country. We could have shown videos of our massive growth in facilities and operations. So I think that's taking a stab at other companies. I think SGC did something like that. So I think this is poking fun and taking shots at SGC here. And then they say, perhaps we should have commented on the numerous new companies that have popped up trying to imitate Beckett grading services, but instead we kept our heads down and continued to grade cards with accuracy and the integrity that the industry expects and has come to know us for. So basically this is the president saying that, they have kept their mouths shut. They haven't really said anything, which is very true. That's one of my biggest complaints about BGS is they aren't very transparent and they don't really come out with many updates, tend to keep pretty quiet. So that's the first part there. And the second part here, I'll sum this up, but it says, let's address the question that everyone's been asking. Is the National going to happen this year? And if it does, what will Beckett's presence and offerings include? As you may or may not know, the National will take place as scheduled on July 28th to August 1st in Illinois. So it does sound like the National is going to happen. This is kind of Beckett saying that they're confirming this is going to happen. And then the rest of this just says that they will be in attendance there to do some grading services on site. And then down here in this last paragraph, with this announcement, Beckett Grading will begin prepping for the show by making a few changes to our grading services. Our plan is to make these changes temporary as we prepare for the National and focus on the cards we've had in our vaults for way too long. So basically he's saying that since they are going to the National, they are going to try to make some changes to expedite their processes so that they are all caught up and can really focus on the National. So that's essentially this top part up here. And then down here, starting June 7th, so that's coming up here in a couple days, starting June 7th, Beckett will suspend all grading submissions other than our premium level. All orders that are submitted under Express, Standard, and Economy level will be returned to the customer ungraded. And I don't really know whether that means cards they have at their warehouse as of a certain date or these are cards that are recently sent in. It's not very clear on that, but it does sound like they will be sending cards that they haven't graded right back to the customers. So that does seem pretty frustrating if you did submit to them, but they will be returning those. So keep a lookout for that. And then it says the reason behind this decision is simply to allow us to focus on the growing backlog we have to get as many cards back to the customers as possible before the National. So again, the focus on the National here. This is not ideal for anyone, but something our competition has done, which we all know PSA has recently shut down most of their services. So this is just Beckett reacting to that. We now feel this is the right move for Beckett. Again, this is going to be temporary and something we believe will improve our availability for the remainder of 2021 and 2022. So they don't really give a time frame of when they think that this suspension is going to end or anything like that. It just says this is going to be temporary without giving any discrete dates. And then it says Beckett will strongly recommend all customers begin using our online submission form when submitting GS or BAS orders. Using this platform will create a much more efficient order submission process. Confirmations, updates, and moving cards through the system will be positively affected and shorten the timeline. So it sounds like that they have a new process that they want everyone to use, which they say will expedite the cards when you are submitting them. And then this last paragraph, second to last paragraph here, he just talks about the pandemic and how hard it's been on the industry, and no shows, manufacturing shutdowns, problems getting supplies. And then he says, thankfully, it appears that many of those concerns and issues are subsiding and our market has flourished to levels we have never seen. And then he ends with, it is truly exciting to be involved in the industry and to see the growth we're all experiencing. We believe the best is yet to come. Continue to be safe and enjoy this great industry. We look forward to working with you in the future and seeing many of you at the National. Again, this is from Jeremy Murray, and he is the president at Beckett. So essentially, the highlights or takeaway of this is that they are going to be at the National, so they did announce that they will be at the National performing their typical grading services. And then also the bigger news is that starting June 7th, they're suspending their services except for the premium level. And it does sound like they're going to be sending ungraded cards back. I don't really know the time frame of how long it has to be in the system before they send it back. So just be on the lookout for that. So now that we covered the new breaking news on Beckett, I did want to give some of the reasons why I think this is happening. The main one is that they obviously have a pretty big backlog, and with PSA shutting down, I'm assuming it got a lot worse. It sounded like at the time their backlog was 1 year turnaround time, which is pretty outrageous. And I'm sure with PSA shutting down, that got even worse. So I think part of this is them shutting down to allow them to get caught up on their current backlog. I think that's probably the main reason. But I do think, and again, this is just me speculating here, I'm not sure what goes on in any of these executive reviews or anything, but just speculation, is the current 9.5, so that's the competition to a PSA 10, the value of a 9.5 is extremely low compared to PSA 10. So I'm thinking that potentially they're thinking with PSA opening up that more PSA 10s would be flooding the market. So I think that one of their assumptions would be that if they hold taking new submissions, then with the influx of PSA 10s, that would essentially dilute the PSA 10 values, and then that would essentially make the 9.5s more valuable in theory if they're holding back the number that they're grading. So that would be more scarce because it's just supply and demand. So I think that could be part of it, is them trying to, in the short term and potentially in the long term, increase the value of their 9.5s because they're not holding up compared to the PSA 10s. But that, again, that's just a thought there. And then what's going to happen next, I think we're going to see the other players, so HGA, SGC, and CSG. Those are the three main players, and you can also throw GMA in there, but I think that they are going to get a lot more submissions. So I think that their turnaround times are going to increase pretty significantly, and I also do potentially see some price increases. So I think the SGC is most likely going to raise their prices again. We've seen that multiple times with them. If they can't keep up with the backlog, then they increase their prices. So if you do have any orders that you want to get out to SGC or any of the other players, I would recommend doing it now before the prices increase or before the turnaround times get too long. And I also think a lot of people, this could just lead them to not submitting any cards until July when PSA opens back up. I think a lot of people might just be holding out to see what PSA looks like when they open back up. But in the short term, I do think that we're going to see bigger backlogs and longer turnaround times to SGC, CSG, and also HGA and GMA, and some potential price increases as well. But that's the end of the video. I tried to keep it shorter today. I really hope that you enjoyed this content and you found it helpful. If you did, please feel free to hit the like button and also subscribe. Thanks and have a good day. Bye.